which really, we don't talk about the Jobs Act, but it's made a tremendous number of jobs. We have over 6 million new jobs in this country. Nobody would have believed that was possible. That's a number that if I would have said that also, nobody would have believed it's possible. And it's the largest package of tax cuts and reforms in American history. We got something done that's truly historic.
I talked to some of the small businesses. I talked to a young lady in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I asked her, I said, how did the tax cut affect your small company? She had like 16 employees. She said, Bruce, I gave them raises. I gave them Christmas bonuses. I talked to a gentleman out in Flowery Branch, Georgia, and he had a flooring company, and he said the same thing. But because of the tax cuts, he was able to incentivize some of his workers in his business. But the list goes on and on and on.
You are the dreamers and the innovators who are powering us into the future. It's exactly what you are. And my administration will be there with you every single step of the way.
Joining me now is Bruce LeVell. He is the presidential appointee for SPA Region 4, which is an advocate for small businesses. So, first of all, tell us about the states that you kind of oversee, several: North Carolina, Mississippi, Tennessee.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Steph. The Region 4, largest region in the country, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, very, very diverse region, one of the most diverse in the country. Big port of entries like Jacksonville, where the ships come in for the cars, Fort Lauderdale with the cruise ship industry, Miami, of course, in its own very vast and robust economy, Atlanta, Hartsfield Airport, largest airport in the world, Mobile, shipbuilding, so vast. The journey has been so phenomenal because there's so much excitement with the president being in office. Everywhere I go, I was in Kentucky yesterday, and it was amazing how the consumer confidence is just really promoting the growth. Every city I go to, there's a crane, there's rehab, there's a construction, there's this vibrant feeling going on that's really phenomenal. And I have to say, everyone I talk to, even the ones who didn't vote for the president, Steph, says, I didn't really vote for him, but I get it. And that's good. We're okay with that. And the consumer confidence is just so phenomenal. It is really sparking a generation of new businesses that are coming up, as well as new generational wealth being acquired through business. So it's been a great ride.
And then in your area, the areas that you oversee, there has been an increase in small businesses and people starting to open their own businesses, right?
Right, exactly. We're at 30 million small businesses in this great nation, and up from 29 million. So you see the growth. 1.9 million jobs came on the sector. But, the small business, we as a small business, myself, for 25 years in Atlanta, we're the employers. We're the hire and the fires. We're the ones out here. And, the consumer confidence, like I said, is just so it's just vibrant. And, the Dodd-Frank, for example, the access to capital, a lot of folks were having a tough time after the financial crash in 2008. Some of them are starting to dust off the plans and getting that confidence with this president in office that says, what? Now I'm ready to build. Now I'm ready to rebuild. When it was very dormant from 2009 all the way to 16. So that is a lot of activity that I'm seeing across the region. It's phenomenal. It's exciting. It's exhilarating, and especially, Steph, the minority community. When the president said, what do you have to lose? And I'm going in all these different communities. I'm starting to see more minority business pop up, more engagement. I hosted a roundtable last year in Atlanta, and I had over 150 minority business owners show up. And it wasn't, 2/3 of the folks in there didn't even vote for the president. But then they start to say, I have to say that I really like what the president's doing. I like the momentum that we're starting to see. I like the confidence, and I like the fact that, when he went out and adjusted Dodd-Frank back in May 24th to try to loosen up capital, access to capital, some of the great initiatives like some of the SBA loans. You can get a 30-year fixed loan up 25 to 30 years on it with 10% down. That's called a 504. Some of the veterans, our beautiful veterans that come into the workforce are retired, that want to start a business. The guarantee fees are taken out. There's so many tools out there to be successful in this president's administration. It is phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like for these business owners, it doesn't really matter who's in office. It matters who's going to cut taxes, who's going to cut the regulations, who's going to create a more business-friendly environment. And it sounds like that's what people are telling you.
Yep.
So are these people, do you think they'll end up supporting Trump in 2020 because they see that it's easier to manage their businesses? They're not going out of business. They want to grow their companies. How does that work? Has anyone said anything
for
to you?
example, look at the tax cuts. You know, I talked to some of the small businesses. I talked to a young lady in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I asked her, I said, how did the tax cut affect your small company? She had like 16 employees. She said, you know, Bruce, I gave them raises. I gave them Christmas bonuses. I talked to a gentleman out in Flowery Branch, Georgia, and he had a flooring company, and he said the same thing. But because of the tax cuts, he was able to incentivize some of his workers in his business. But the list goes on and on and on. So I'm sitting here like, wow. And so now these are a lot of folks that I've talked to that didn't vote. They're not Republican or didn't vote for the president, which respectfully, the president doesn't really care. The president just wants you to be successful. And he knows if he can promote success, then it's a win-win for all. And I know that to be true because I've witnessed it throughout the region. It's phenomenal. It's like this, the real train, Stephanie, is really coming.
Yeah.
You know?
What are some of the things that business owners are telling you are a challenge for them?
Yeah. Oh, interesting question. Number one is healthcare, incentivizing their employees. Every single state I've been in, every county, it's the same thing. It's like, you know, Bruce, my premiums were at $800, now they're at $1,900. They doubled, some 40, 50, 60% increases. And they said, you know, I'd really like to retain my employees. And you know, what better measure to have an employee is to incentivize with a health care program. And that is the chopping block. But thank God, like you saw what the president said 2 weeks ago, he said that he'll be the leader in the new health care. And so that is something that I'm hoping that is going to come to fruition, because that is the number one that I run across in my region that talk about, you know, Bruce, we really need affordable health care. We really need to have something to retain our employees, incentivize our employees. You know, I never saw this before, but a lot of the self-employed people have a spouse that will go out and get a job to get the health coverage instead of help, and then come at night and do the books. So it's very challenging, you know, especially a lot of businesses that pay 43, 44%, you know, out of their small business. Inventory tax, payroll tax, sales tax, ad valorem tax, alarm fee tax. You know, it goes on and on. So the president's initiative on cutting the tax is the only thing I can see. And when you said something earlier, regulations. You know, when he came into office, he signed the executive order of cutting regulations. He cut over $1 billion in February of 2017. And he said for every one regulation you put, you have to take 2 out. Remember that? Check this out. As of 2018, last year, he's at 3.75 to 1. So he's exceeded his expectations on cutting regulations. Stephanie, the red tape is real.
So what else are, aside from healthcare, like what do people tell you at these business roundtables?
Yeah.
I mean,
access to capital.
Okay.
Number 2, access to capital. You know, the unfortunate part of the financial crash that America went through, especially my region. Georgia was one of the harder hits. Our housing industry, you know, your house was at one point $150,000. Then all of a sudden it was $80,000. Lines of credits were taken. Florida, there was a lot of inventory and homes and businesses that loans were called because of the TARP and the bailouts, et cetera. But interesting point on here. The great thing about when the president ran in his campaign saying he would not be tied to any lobbyists or special interest groups, that in itself is so profound. I'm going to tell you why. Because respectfully, as myself, I went through it. And what better way to have a testimony is when you experience it yourself.
Yeah.
Is when you have an asset and all of a sudden you're doing what you're supposed to do, and all of a sudden someone, a bank comes in and fails, but then the FDIC sees it and they take it and give it to another bank, and then they call the loan for no reason. I was one of those victims. I know what it feels like. That's why I wanted to serve and give back to the country, because I know what it feels like when you come to town with $35 to your name in Atlanta. That's all I had.
Yeah.
And I worked very hard. I pawned my silver. I told my wife, I said, you know, we're 30 days of being homeless if this doesn't work. Are you ready for this? But I'm one of millions that did that. And I said, you know, I know we can do this. We worked so hard, and we looked up one day and we were millionaires. Yeah, we were. And then the 2008 came, and all of a sudden I get a call from my bank and said, Mr. LeVell, it's been a pleasure being with you, but our bank is failing and we're being seized by the FDIC. Now, I was one of millions of people. I'm not anything different, Steph.
Yeah.
I'm just the messenger. And I said, wow, that's not fair. You can't call my loan. I'm solvent. I have great credit. Well, we don't want it on the books anymore because the government was able to put money and special interest allowed to push money into those entities. So they didn't care. And that's what happened. That's what happened to our system. But when President Trump came in and says, you know what? I'm not tied to anyone. That is so critical. You know, it's interesting how everything on that statement he said alone ties to everything on his success as President of the United States. Think about it. Everything he touches, it gets back to, no, I'm good. No, because he doesn't owe anyone. And I've always said this. I said this in my prayer, actually. You know, President Trump is the person who's going to come back. Everything that was robbed and stolen from the American people is going to come back in his administration tenfold.
Yeah, and so you were just kind of touching on the fact that you're a business owner.
Right.
You started your own business, and something that you've mentioned to me before is that part of your mission is to inspire people to start a
Right.
business,
Yeah.
Especially people like in the African American
Yeah,
community.
exactly.
I guess I remember we had a conversation about how you said people don't realize that they could too be a business owner,
Yep.
and they don't really know where to go, how to get the resources, how to get started.
Good point. Many places I go. And one thing that resonates better than anyone, historically, most political people, Democrat, Republicans, whoever, independents, on whoever they were trying to gain the vote, especially in the minority community, we're going to bring you jobs. We're going to bring jobs. Okay, watch this. President Trump, no. We're going to make it so you can build your own business and you can be the job creator. Do you know how strong that is? Case in point, going to more predominantly minority communities where the folks who live there don't own the gas station or the grocery store. But Stephanie, in this administration, I'm telling you, all that's going to change. That's going to change where you walk. If you choose, if you're African American and you want to live in an African American community, God bless you. If you're Hispanic, you want to live in a Hispanic community, God bless you. But you should at least have ownership and equity in your retail commodities in your community. You should be inspired. And this president, these United States of America has resurrected the American dream to I can build that. Case in point, what I do for a living. I was inspired in 1983. I said, you could build this. So that I'm starting to see yeah. I tell you, I was in Wilmington, North Carolina. I met the Subway owner, African American woman. I was so excited. I've never met, an African American woman that owned a Subway. I mean, it's like all of this desire and this fire in this administration is resurrecting the best of the best in terms of innovation and ingenuity and new business. The competition, oh my goodness, it's just phenomenal. So I say that on my journey that I see a light at the end of the tunnel. But the only way, yes, jobs are great, but especially in the underserved communities, you saw the president sign the opportunity zones where you can direct over estimate $100 billion plus in underserved communities all across this great nation. You can take money of investment, sell a business, take the capital gains, invest it over there, build another entity, help bring a minority business partner in there. I'm starting to see that in Atlanta. This is what resurrects this nation. But the great thing about it, I'm starting to see it in some of the, I don't want to say left behind, but the underserved community, especially in the minority community. This is going to be, I said this before, this president is the greatest president ever in my lifetime in the history that I've read for the minority community. I stand by that.